Alright, so first off, we'll talk about the fighting game roundtable in general. Mainly thoughts about the discussions, not focusing too much on announcements, and then we'll get into thoughts about BBTAG's current state. Okay, so it was awesome to see all the major Japanese fighting game devs share the same screen. Apparently, it wasn't easy to get that to happen, and this is something that's really out of their comfort zone. For the discussion, they plan on having 8 minutes per topic, though it was kind of obvious that certain topics would need more time than that. They chose to discuss how they create their rosters, crossplay, future support for fight sticks, the user experience in future fighting games, and the perceived simplification of fighting games. Obviously, some of these topics were really interesting to hear about. Crossplay was actually one of the things that I asked about on Twitter, so I was pretty surprised they actually talked about it. And from what I've gathered, rollback and crossplay were the two biggest discussions that we in the West wanted them to talk about. Rollback was mentioned, but it definitely wasn't a main discussion topic. And I can only hope that they'll have a discussion about rollback at the next roundtable. Thor. Yeah, like they did not talk about rollback. Wasn't part of the discussion. Unfortunately, that was one of the reasons why so many people were upset about the whole roundtable, because everyone was like, finally they're going to talk about rollback, but that's not what happened. Right, Ken. The thing is this is the thing, Ken. Even if the rollback discussion would have been the long topic that took up the majority of the time for the roundtable, people would have been happy. People would have been happy. I think that they needed to spend more time talking about certain things like crossplay and rollback. Learning about how they make their rosters, that was interesting. That was cool, but that wasn't the most important topic that people really wanted to be discussed. With this being the first roundtable, I felt that I personally had lower than average expectations because I didn't expect much when it came to announcements, but for some reason, I thought that these companies were going to share with each other how they're going to achieve crossplay and good net play using rollback netcode in their fighting games. I thought that would be something that they would all strive for together despite being competitors. Obviously, now I realize that that's not going to happen because each company wants to make their own achievements, by themselves, separately from the other companies. However, I do think that it was a good thing they had this roundtable, and I want them to continue to have them in the future, going forward. And this is the main reason why. During the roundtable, most of the devs talked about how implementing good netcode, the few times it did come up, most of the devs talked about how implementing good netcode and crossplay was costly and how it had its share of challenges. So while these big companies were giving excuses about why it's hard to do, Nishitani from Arika, the smallest company at the roundtable, announced that they were releasing an update for Fighting EX Layer on PS4 and Steam literally within minutes that would add in rollback netcode. Of course, they had already been beta testing it for a while, and they've been working on it. It wasn't something that was done overnight, but the timing of the actual update couldn't have been better. Arika pretty much showed up every dev that was just giving excuses, and on top of that, they are already working on adding crossplay to that game as well. Makoto, yes, dude. I'm actually gonna be talking about. I'll be talking about Blaze Blue, a little bit about Blaze Blue, and BBTAG right after this. But yeah, like we didn't hear anything. We didn't hear anything about Blaze Blue. Blaze Blue and BBTAG, neither of them were mentioned during the roundtable. Yeah, that's something else that I agree with you. I agree with you there, Makoto. Like, if you think about it, like, Bandai Namco was like, hey, the Fighters announcement will come later this month, right? And other, we know the Grand Blue one is going to come this Saturday, right? The thing about it is that ArcSys is the one that's developing all of them. You know, they're the ones that have to work on Fighters, Grand Blue, and they're working on Strive, and they have, you know, BBTAG to worry about, and then they have Persona 5 Arena that people are expecting to be announced at some point in the future, you know, so they've been busy for sure. All right, so yeah, like for the roundtable, seeing how competitive these developers are with each other, I think it'd be pretty embarrassing if they continued to have these, and for some reason, you know, like the bigger companies end up being seen as inferior because they can't implement good netcode into their fighting games, but a small company like Arika can. You know, I hope that is going to be a good motivator to make them dedicated to implementing solid net play into their games. Tekken 7 was the only other game that mentioned getting an update to its netcode. Harada said that they've been testing their improved rollback netcode internally with good results, and that it's going to be a part of the Season 4 update this fall. So, for what it's worth, I really hope it is a big improvement. If it is, I'll probably start playing Tekken. Negan has always been a character that's seemed interesting to me, so if the game gets good netcode, I will probably get into the game and pick him up. 1 second, I'm going to double check the chat and move on to BBTAG in a little bit. Right, yeah, Kin. I definitely agree with you. I feel like a lot of fans are willing for sacrifices to be made in order to ensure that rollback is implemented into their games, you know? After the roundtable, I saw some people tweeting that they would rather, for example, Arc Revo Online not even be held because that's going to cost money, right? Just to make sure that all of that goes through, that's going to cost money. So instead of trying to put those time and resources into having an online tour where you show off how poor your netcode is, right? Trying to still keep a competitive scene going for your game, but showing off how bad the netcode is for your game for everyone to see. How about you just use that and you start working on implementing good netcode into that game so that maybe next year, if things are still not safe to have in-person events, we can have solid online tournaments with good netcode, you know? Okay, yeah, I agree with you guys. Yes, BBTAG does need better netcode. It does, because in this kind of game, especially in this kind of game, you do need, like, those few extra frames that you miss because of delay. Those can make a huge difference in a match, without a doubt. But Thor, yeah, at this point, Thor, I do agree with you. I think that it's not likely for BBTAG to get rollback. Well, I'm going to say this. It's not likely for BBTAG to get rollback if they're not going to continue to, like, support it with DLC for too much longer. If right? And I'm just saying if. I don't think this is the case, but if, for example, they continue to have major updates for the game, right? Let's just say that we got a major update this year. They have one planned for next year, and they had some kind of update planned, after that as well, right? Maybe not as big, but they had like 2 big major updates planned and then maybe something else. It might be worth putting in the time to add and roll back to the game, just so that you can support it for that long, and just so that even when the game is finished with its DLC support, it's going to be a solid game, right? PS5 will support PS4 games. So even with the next gen, if you pick up BBTAG, and if it had a good rollback, right, and you had the hype characters that people have wanted for years now, this game, I can still see this game being alive if they handle things perfectly, but yeah, I don't think it's that likely, but I still think that it's still something that's possible. It's just that you don't count on it. But yeah, I do think that if there were any current fighting games from ArcSys to get rollback, I think Fighters would be. Well, I don't know. I feel like Fighters is maybe on its way out, maybe. But I think that Granblue would probably be the first priority, because the game literally came out this year. Pandemic happens. Doesn't really get too much of an offline scene because of pandemic. People complain about online play because netcode isn't good. Okay, well, now it's stuck. It's its launch year and the game is stuck. So I feel like it could maybe get rollback netcode. Cygames has the money for it for sure. So honestly, I feel like it's possible. I mean, now that they're putting it in Strive, all Cygames would have to do is just say, hey, can you make this a priority for our game? Maybe instead of developing characters for Season 3, maybe instead of developing that many characters, just focus on netcode. And if you can get 1 or 2 characters for that next round, next season, Season 2.5, whatever you want to call it, then cool. But rollback is a priority. That's possible. Yeah, I do hope, I really do hope that the pandemic will be done with by next year. I hope so. Yeah, I agree. Thor, like, I agree. I think that if any of Arc's current fighting games are getting rollback netcode, yeah, I don't expect for it to be soon. Strive isn't even out yet, and they have to make sure that the netcode is good with that game first. I think if anything is going to get updated with rollback, it will be late next year. Late next year is when that would happen. In my opinion, anyway. That's when I guess it would happen. But yeah, as long as they're busy just making updates and DLC for other companies' fighting games like Fighters and Granblue, I mean, that's just going to put a strain on their resources when it comes to BBTAG. I'm sure that whatever they need to do for Strive, they're making sure that they do it. So it's not too much, to worry about when it comes to Strive, because I'm sure that that's a priority for them as well. Okay, so yeah, I'm about to get to BBTAG, because I feel like most of the discussion right now is more towards how things are affecting BBTAG or rollback possibly being in the other games. Okay, so yeah, overall, I'm looking forward to having more of the roundtables in the future. Ideally, I'd love for them to be every other month. If that's not possible for their schedules, then at least once every 3 months. I think that it's good for each company to see how their competitors are doing, because that should lead to more healthy competition that drives the genre forward, Also, the roundtable is a good opportunity for devs to talk directly to the fans. Better communication is always a plus, so, I think that people will be pretty happy about that. And yeah, that is pretty much it for the roundtable.